Hi, I'm Kate Solisti. Welcome back to my YouTube channel, A Kinship with Animals. For this is where I share messages and stories from the wild ones that help us remember that we are all connected, and that if we listen to these messages, we will often receive gifts of healing as well as input as to how to make changes to save our planet. In addition to the messages from the wild ones, I share stories of my animal communication sessions that I've had with people and their beloved companions, sessions that can be life-changing for both the animal and their person. I also share experiences that I've had in our backyard because I want to encourage you all to appreciate, enjoy, observe, and interact with the wildlife in your yard. Recently, I shared a story of the crows that we have in our yard. These are wonderful friends of ours who we share salmon skins with and sometimes put chicken out for them. And in a previous story, I shared how they actually scared a coyote away when our elder cat was outside. But this story was an interesting story of a way that I actually intervened. And I did this because I was concerned that I needed to keep the peace and harmony in our backyard because we do share seeds. And the seeds that we put out, we have so many visitors, from little nuthatches to chickadees to the stellar jays, and we have a pair of beautiful hairy woodpeckers. Hairy woodpeckers. Anyway, they're beautifully black and white. The male has a little red splash on the top of his head, and the female has all black. They're beautiful little birds. And they're about the size of a robin, so about that size. And our crows are very large. They're very big. And normally everyone is in harmony. Now occasionally we have had a Cooper's hawk or a different hawk come through and nail a bird. Unfortunately, some of the jinkos and things like that. But normally there's harmony. And so I was in my office working, and I have a big window, and I saw, it all happened very fast. I saw a flash of color of white, and I saw a crow. And I thought, what's that? So I ran into the kitchen, and I ran outside because something had just happened. And I heard one of the woodpeckers say, "My mate, my mate." And we were calling very loudly. And I looked down and I saw a big crow, and there was a beautiful woodpecker on the ground. For some reason, because I'd never seen the crows ever attack another bird, the crow had attacked this woodpecker. So I, in full temper, yelled at the crows because, I've been caring for them and feeding them. And I said, "What do you think you're doing?" I yelled really loudly, "This is a safe place for all the birds. This is not okay." And I had to run outside and down the deck and around. And the crow had backed off, and he looked at me, and I scolded him, and I said, "This is not okay. All the birds are welcome here. And I am very upset with you because I take care of you." And the crow flew up in the tree, and there were a couple other crows, and I could feel the energy from them like, oh boy, this isn't good. And I bent down, and the woodpecker was in shock. And the little thing was grasping onto the grass. And so, because I have been trained in Reiki, which is a beautiful calming energy healing work, I put my hands around the bird, didn't touch him yet, and just sent waves of love and healing energy. And I wanted to see if he was injured and if he was okay. And so I sat with him, and then one of his wings was extended, and so then I just gently took the wing and brought it back to his body, and it was fine. It wasn't broken. I checked that out as I was going very gently. And again, I'm tuning in intuitively. I'm being very careful here to use all of my abilities, observation, my abilities to intuitively connect. And I could feel the bird was in shock, but I did not feel that it was badly injured. So I waited, and then, keeping my hands around the bird, I let them get closer and closer. And the bird was looking at me. He was blinking his eyes. And his heart was beating fast, and I was able to hold him, and eventually he let go of the grass, and I picked him up, and again, with great love and compassion, which all of us can do this, I brought him up, and I was not going to leave him where the crows would find him still in shock, so I stayed with him. And I brought him to another tree, because I knew once he got his bearings, one of the things he was going to want to do was climb up a tree. So I stayed with him, and I held him, and I talked to him. And I continued to send him waves of love and Reiki energy. And then I just put him on the ground, kept my hands right by him. Meanwhile, the crows had taken off. They knew they were in big trouble with me. And I moved my hands away, and he turned his head and he looked at me. And then he hopped a little ways, and he was wobbly. He kind of fell over, not all the way. And then he righted himself. And I continued to wait. And to my great joy, in a moment, he flew onto the tree. And he looked back at me, and then he crawled up the tree like woodpeckers do. And he stayed there. And so I went back up on the deck, and I waited and I watched him. And eventually he moved to a branch, and finally he flew away. And I told the crows there would be no more of this. There would be no more attacking the other birds in our happy kingdom here. And I could feel a real shift in the crows after I had intervened. And of course it's not always appropriate to intervene. But in this case, because of the environment I'd created where all the birds were safe, the squirrels were safe, that this was important to me because I knew these woodpeckers. And again, the one had called to me, my mate, my mate. And so I did. And it was a moment where all of my energy was focused on what I meant to the crows, you know, sort of fierce mother energy. And also love and compassion for this little being who was in shock and who simply needed time to recover and to create a safe space for that bird to recover. And the crows have so far, and that was a few years ago, have never harassed the woodpeckers again. The 2 pairs of woodpeckers have returned, and everything seems to be in harmony. So the point of my story is, it is such a joy to interact by simply feeding the birds and squirrels in our neighborhood, being conscious of their relationships. But sometimes, if we feel so compelled to help, support, and find a way to allow an animal the time to heal, we can do that, again, with great care and understanding. So I wanted to share that with you and encourage you to know and feel into the relationships that you can develop with the crows, with the birds, all the birds in your yard and in the park, the squirrels, so many beings, the bunnies, the insects, there's so many beings who, if we stop and we watch and we listen, this too rekindles our relationship with all life. So thank you for listening. See you next time.